Recording.
All right, we only have 30 minutes, so.
Why?
Because I don't have enough storage.
What? Wait, 30 minutes? Wait, you...
Welcome to another episode of the Golden Hour Podcast.
All right, we're going to speed podcast. I'm your host, Connor McCaskill, with your co-hosted by...
Dave Mays.
We're doing the Wii music twice in a row, huh?
It's such a great intro.
Yeah, it is actually kind of nice.
We have some new tools today. We've got the mic stands on the table.
Yeah, this should be... It makes me kind of have to stand up because they're fixed. It's non-adjustable, so, it's, you know.
Yeah, we could get some
posture.
chairs with a little bit of height adjustment to help with that.
True.
But
yeah.
Or just sit up straight.
Right. Well, we actually have quite a bit of things to get through if we only have 30 minutes.
Sure.
Why don't we just go ahead and let's just jump right into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Lots of rumors to get through. Obviously, not a rumor. The Sony A7 R5. Man, these names are getting hard to keep track of. That came out right after we recorded the last podcast, actually. So we'll get to that. But I figure we'll start this off with some rumors. How does that sound?
Sure. Rumors. By the time you listen to this camera should be announced because apparently Canon, at the time of recording, is announcing the R6 Mark II tomorrow.
Yeah.
But
as well as a new lens, which should be the RF 135
yes.
1.8 lens, which will be kind of nice. So looking forward to that.
Looks like we got some leaked images of the, again, as you're listening to this camera should be out. So it will not be leaked. It will be released.
Right. But it looks like it's got a few different things. It's got a lock mode switch on the top, which is kind of nice. Off lock, and also a photo video switch as well, which is always appreciated.
I like that photo video switch. It kind of is similar to the R7, although the R7 was the on switch,
right.
And you would turn it on to either photo or video mode.
Right.
But this is great. I would assume that means that the video and photo settings are separated. So that means you can keep your 180-degree shutter angle rule on your video mode with a log profile, and then switch over to photo, have a higher shutter speed, shoot raw photos.
Exactly. So you could have both set up for whatever situation you need and switch between them, no problem. So that'd be great.
Yep.
They did leak the price. So the expected price of the R6 should be $2,500 US. It's a fair price. I think that's similar to what the original R6 was. So kind of to be expected, honestly.
And that is in direct comparison and competition to the A7 IV from Sony. It's the same price point. It's a similar feature set. It'll be interesting to see a comparison between these two, and we certainly will do a comparison of this camera and a review.
Yes.
If we can get our hands on one.
Absolutely. There's going to be lots of cameras to review because also announcing tomorrow, which I'm excited for. I don't know how many other people are excited. It's also in that same link for you. Is the Fujifilm X-T5. It should be officially announced tomorrow. So definitely looking forward to that.
Leak ahead of a November 2nd announcement. 40 megapixels.
Yeah.
Interesting. Is that the same as the XH2?
I think it is the same as the XH2. It's not a stack sensor like the XH2S. So it should be a higher megapixel. Higher megapixel. That's just habit.
Did you say that for real?
No, I said that accidentally.
Wow. That's awesome.
Higher megapixel count than the XT4. Thank you. Yeah, I like the little drum thing. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to the XT5. I probably should sell my XT4 soon.
Yeah.
Like today.
Why would you get the XT5 over the XH2 if it's a similar sensor and better in some ways?
I like the form factor of the XT4, XT5 series, personally. So that's one. And then it's also just priced cheaper.
Just cheaper.
Yeah, and it's not going to be a main camera, and it has most all the features. Like if I was going to get a Fujifilm for like a main camera, I get the 2S because that thing looks awesome, especially with the stack sensor. So, but yeah, the X-T5 should be announced tomorrow, and I might have to do a day one order on that.
Okay.
I'm really excited.
I have the Olympus camera company as my little unnecessary camera, but I use it for all my pictures. And then you have the Fuji as your unnecessary camera that you use for nothing.
Nothing.
currently.
Yeah. Well, I don't really do anything actually. No.
I see you grabbing the R5 for everything.
Anything that's work related. I haven't had much time to just go out and
for pleasure.
Yeah, but Zach and I were talking about maybe doing a little photo shoot walk thing. So I'd probably bring the XT4 in that case.
Okay.
Because it's just a really fun system to shoot photos on. Like you pick it up and it's just fun. I always loved the film simulations that you could do and the film recipes you could do in the Fujifilm cameras. That's, I think, pretty much unique to Fujifilm. I don't know of any other camera that does that. So it is fully unique, and I'm really excited to get my hands on it and see what's different really with this. I mean, obviously the sensor is going to be different, but what else are they adding in? Or maybe there's new simulations, or maybe there's more options. Who knows? It's going to be pretty exciting.
I think if it's the same as the XH2, it'll just be the XH2, just cheaper.
Right.
So, which we already have seen plenty of reviews of that, and it looks like even the XH2 is a great deal for what it is.
Right.
I believe.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than the S, the two.
And Fujifilm's prices are honestly, for what you get, like even the XH2S, which I think is the same price as the Sony A7 IV, it has some really solid. It's still a little cheaper actually.
$21.99. It's not bad. It's cheaper than the R6 Mark II.
Yeah, the feature set on this camera is nuts. So the only thing it's lacking in, which is just the Fujifilm issue, is going to be the autofocus comparatively to Sony. I mean, like if you're in it for the autofocus, I mean, Sony is the no-brainer, especially now. And the IBIS is, I haven't actually tried IBIS.
Well, we haven't even played with this camera at all. So.
But if it's anything like the XT4's IBIS, it's all right. If you're hand-holding shots, it looks good. If you add any extra movement, it's a little wonky. So it is what it is.
I like how with the XH2S, they've put a full-size HDMI on there now, and it's a chunkier system, kind of more like a normal camera.
Yeah, I mean, that's truly a workhorse Fujifilm camera. That's supposed to be like the camera you buy if that's like your main guy in this ecosystem. But for me, because I use it more as like a secondary camera, that's why I like the XT5. It's a little more fun.
Why didn't you ever consider getting the X100? I feel like that'd fit with your vibe.
It's the same. It's not the same price. It's close to the same price as any of the XT cameras, and I think the XT has more options, especially with the interchangeable lenses and all that stuff.
IBIS, all that.
IBIS and all that fun stuff. I mean, I love the X100V, but I think it's just a little too expensive for what it is.
Moving on to the A7R5 from Sony.
Yes, soon to be what everyone means when they say R5.
Yeah.
Sorry, Canon, you're gonna get outshined here.
Probably.
The Sony R5 released, and it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of got everything, the kitchen sink thrown in there.
Right. For a marginally good price. What is it, $4,000, I think?
I mean,
for the body,
that's expensive compared to this Fuji, but
of course, I'm just talking about compared to its competitors and what it provides. I think it's nestled quite nicely.
Yeah, it's in the same price point as the R5 from Canon.
Although they're kind of different. The Sony has a lot of. I noticed when I was watching Gerald's video on it, like a lot of cropping. When it comes to different options, it kind of forces you into it.
True.
So I wouldn't really call that an option. It's your only option. Like when you shoot 8K, it like crops in, what was it, like a one point something.
Yeah, it's not bad. I think it's like 1.2 or something. It's not like a full Super 35.
And then like
crop,
4K 60 cropped in like 1.5. And then there's APS-C modes, and like those just go up to like certain frame rates, and then I think they even crop it. It was like weird. It was like a little hard to like follow all the. You go watch Gerald's video. He explains it, and even still, I was a little like, no, okay, it's hard to keep track of all the different crops. So that's a little interesting. But
I love
that
the flip
being said, the flip screen. But also, he did a lot of overheating tests, and it didn't overheat at all. So I'm assuming all the different crop modes are preventing overheating, like the Canon R5 had.
The big takeaway for me is that there is no like down sampling going on any of these formats. 8K is basically just a rip from the 8K sensor, so that's why there's a little bit of a crop.
Right.
It's like a 1.2 or something. So that's literally just 1-for-1 straight off of the 61 megapixel sensor.
Okay.
And then the 4K mode is not an 8K to 4K down res like the R5 from Canon, which has the wonderful HQ mode that looks super crisp.
Right.
Because basically it's just compressing 8K down to 4K, so it's just super clean, super sharp. But you still, especially in the past, had overheating issues, but now it seems to have been fairly resolved.
Yeah.
But what they're doing is the line skipping thing. So the 4K mode on it is basically the whole sensor, and then it's doing the line skipping.
I heard that it's comparable
Pixel binning
in terms of how it looks and like sharpness and stuff to like the A7S3.
Yeah, that's what Gerald did a side by side, and both 4K modes on that look almost identical in terms of sharpness and overall image quality.
Right, which is great.
Which is great.
That looks good. I mean,
A7S looks awesome, but the A7 IV is actually sharper than the A7S because it's doing a 6K to 4K down res.
Right. Actually, honestly, like seeing this camera, like if I was gonna go Sony tomorrow, even though this camera looks really cool and it has the cool flippy screen, which is great, I think that flip screen should be on everything. Everything. I mean, it's fantastic, but I think I would pick still the A7 IV.
It's just the best all around deal.
Yeah, it's like the bang for buck deal. If you're going Sony, if you're looking at Sony cameras, it's like it's just great. I mean, obviously, I guess 8K is nice, but if you're not benefiting from a down sample on it, I don't really get it because I'm not going to shoot anything 8K.
Yeah.
Not in today's world, but I would love a downsampled 8K.
Yeah, look at this screen here. We're watching Gerald Undone's video. Everybody go watch Gerald's video.
Probably already have, let's be honest.
I'm not trying to steal this from Gerald, friend of the show, but just look at this wonderful display technology.
I mean, it's honestly the perfect. We've seen a similar screen with the who did
S1H?
That? Yeah, the S1H
and Panasonic's GH6 as well.
Yeah, but this seems to be the best iteration of it, and it is. I mean, it's the perfect screen combination for photographers and videographers, which obviously this camera is marketing itself towards both. I would say, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the S1H had one. This screen, which is kind of weird. It's a chunky boy on this guy. Let's see.
Yeah. It was a thick screen.
I have a shot of it somewhere where I show the screen, but I don't know where it is. Anyways, it might have been a little earlier. This camera did have a beautiful image though.
Yeah.
I actually just took the camera and ran around Hollywood. I wasn't supposed to do that. I found out later I wasn't supposed to leave the location that we were at, but I just took the camera and just ran around.
Yeah.
Got some cool footage.
Well, you brought it back, so it's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries.
And then at the time I was using a really crappy old Intel laptop. I remember exporting this out. It was 6K ProRes or whatever. And it took like I think 6 hours to export it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So
now that would take like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe less.
So here is the cool articulating screen on this thing, on the S1H. Yeah. It was similar, but way thicker.
Right. Well, and in all fairness, this came out well before, and now Sony's taken a similar.
It's like the prototype for Sony.
They're exactly.
Like, here, we'll help you with this. For our own research.
And then we'll do it better.
Yeah, which is basically how Sony works.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely love the screen design. Hope to see that in the future.
I do like that I'm not sure how I feel about the CF Express Type A cards. They're great, but they're very pricey for what they are. And but I do like that it is a dual CF Express A and also SD card slot. So if you can't afford those cards or you just don't have any, but you have some really solid SD cards, you're plenty fine to use those as well. So I do like that design. I wish that, for instance, where the CF Express Type B card is on the Canon, I wish that also accepted SD.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be great.
Because they just have two different things altogether.
Right. So it's one Express and then one SD.
They're not smart enough to do both.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
iPhone Doe has a wonderful video. Again, Farak, he's been on the podcast as well, good friend of the show. He did a great video kind of talking about the AI autofocus, which was something we mentioned in last week's episode. And it's something that, again, along with the screen, is a really wonderful upgrade. And it's something that I hope to see more of from Sony in the future.
Right.
Often with Sony cameras, there's features on one camera and then not features on another, and they don't seem to update things all the time.
Well, it's interesting, yeah, because like even
a hardware upgrade.
Even the A1 like still doesn't have like focus breathing compensation, which is on the A7S3, and it's like, why? It's a $6,000 camera. Shouldn't it have all the things? But
that's what Gerald was saying. He basically said it's just weird how like the A1 is the flagship of all of their cameras. That is the top, most expensive, highest spec camera. Why is it like it needs to get, if there's something new and better in a lower end camera, that needs to be prioritized in their flagship.
So are you talking about the autofocus here? I wonder
if this is software based, then yes, but
that's what I was curious. I wonder if this is like new sensor tech or if this is software or what is. I mean, it should be just computing, right? So you would think it's software.
The A1, basically, my takeaway from Gerald, which I think he owns an A1 and uses it as his A camera.
Right.
He basically said this A7R5 for video shooters is basically like a crippled A1. Like, if you just want everything to work all the time with no limitations, get the A1.
Yeah.
So Farak is showing the AI autofocus here, where you can register people's faces. So this is a shot of Sydney Diongzin and Jenna, Justine's sister.
Jenna Azaric.
And they are basically, they've registered their faces in the autofocus, and they're able to like kind of like just tap on the person or whatever. I don't know. It's just really interesting.
I was talking to Armando about it, and he was telling me that it is kind of next level. He's like, it makes all other autofocus feel kind of dumb, which is something you were referencing earlier. It's like autofocus is kind of dumb.
Yeah.
So this is potentially fixing that. And you have lots of different options. Like it has object detection, like cars, and it has now like bird and animals being different, and then insect detection as well. So it's like, you know, pretty soon it's going to get better and better and better. And I'm very impressed with what I've seen with the.
Did Philip get one? No, he didn't get one.
Philip.
Did Armando get a video out?
I don't think he got a video out. I could be wrong. I didn't get it suggested to me if he did.
I know Sydney will have one. That's for sure. Mr. Sydney Diongzin.
There it is.
He's the Sony man. The man with a plan. I mean, obviously, the photos are fantastic on this.
Yeah.
It's probably the most popular stills camera from Sony, the R line. I remember when we interviewed a lot of these different travel influencers on this podcast back when we were working with Polar Pro, almost all of them were shooting on the A7R from Sony.
As they should. I mean, the sensor is great. The autofocus is great. It's like, what else do you need?
We're watching some of the AI autofocus stuff here where it's like detecting airplanes and bugs and different things.
Master Chief's helmet.
I
did hear that the noise... what am I trying to say?
The ISO
noise. Performance is great. Like it is still good, but it's not necessarily like one of Sony's best low light cameras.
Sure. And you always get that with high resolution.
Right, exactly.
I think again it comes down to what is your use case. I think for us as YouTubers, I think every YouTuber is fine with the A7 IV.
Right.
It does have some rolling shutter and some limitations with 4K 60. So if those things are important to you, then go ahead and get the A7S III. The A7S III alone is kind of all we need as video shooters.
Yeah, Zach Mayfield just made a video talking about the fact that the A7 S3, this is getting really hard. I have to pause. You say A7 and then you pause and you go, which camera am I about to say? 7S3. He made a good video about it. Basically, like, it's still a good camera.
Out of the way. I'm not going to make you wait till the end, okay? 12 megapixels is enough. You in the back?
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, Zach.
Yeah, that one's for you.
It's so good.
I love Zach. So yeah, basically his video, he talks about how he's been rocking the A7S for about a year now, and he loves it, and the autofocus is great, the EVF is great.
Yeah, he's like,
photos
he's basically saying, like, just because these cameras are coming out, which are really cool, it's like, if you have this camera, for example, you don't need those extra little features. They're cool, and if you are looking to upgrade, these are worth checking out, of course, like the 7.4 and the R5.
Yeah.
But
What's up, everybody?
what's up? But it is, it's like all these cameras are fantastic. Honestly, the last few years of cameras have been kind of incredible.
Absolutely.
And if you have any one of them, you should be plenty good for a while.
I think next week we'll be able to talk about our findings with the R6 Mark II.
Right.
Because I am a little curious. I don't want to really spend the money for an R5. I have this Olympus camera that's sort of in that same price point.
Yeah.
I may consider switching if it made sense, because it would be a wonderful B camera to a 670.
To be honest, I would, if it looks pretty good and the reviews are good and the specs are pretty decent, because I'm assuming it's that 6K sensor still. Or a new one. It's
24 megapixels or whatever.
I would consider probably even selling my R5 to get it, as long as the specs and performance seem relatively good. Because I wasn't too impressed with I wasn't too impressed with the original R6. So they fixed a lot of those issues I had with the Mark II.
24 megapixels is plenty. That's all I ever need.
Yeah, because I don't need this 8K R5. Like, if I'm being honest, I just got it for those extra features that the R6 didn't have.
Yes. So it's saying that there's a crop in 4K 60.
Right.
It's doing Canon Log 3, and it can shoot up to 30 frames per second 4K with no crop, which is, for the majority of what we do, that's fine.
Right.
And even a tiny little bit of crop in a 60 mode isn't the end of the world, because...
Yeah, it's a 1.1x crop. I mean, that's nothing.
That's what it says the original one was.
So I see the original
one. We don't know the answer, but...
Sorry.
But yeah, even if it's a little crop, it's fine, because I feel like we only use 60 when we're doing like product shots.
Right.
So a little bit of crop in those modes is fine, because you're doing handheld like B-roll stuff.
Sometimes it's nice to have a little extra reach as well. So
yeah,
who knows? It could even benefit you in some way. If it's solid, I would consider, because then I'd save a ton of money. Sell this for whatever I can get for it, probably similar, and then get the R6, save some cash, maybe buy a new lens. Sounds pretty nice.
It is better in low light as well.
There you go.
So, yeah, we're still holding on to Canon. We did a
grip.
We did do a review last week. The iPhone review.
It's edited. It should be live by the time you hear this.
Yeah, so check it out. Dave May's Reviews.
That's right.
On that channel, you can watch it.
A little gear guy.
That's me. And Malachi and Connor and I last week after our podcast recording went out and filmed 5 things to do with the iPhone.
Yeah, five things to do with it. No. It was basically like 5 ways to shoot with the iPhone that should hopefully help improve how your footage looks.
Yeah.
Different things like that. They were pretty simple tricks. We were going a little
improve
basic.
our view count by talking about things that people are searching for.
Exactly. So hopefully y'all enjoy it. I mean, you guys are probably a little more pro.
Yeah.
So it's probably not content for your palate, but
we did shoot it on the C70.
Yeah, if you want to check it out, feel free.
Good.
There's some good memes in there. If you like memes,
it's a great edit.
Yeah, there's a few good edits in there.
In the inferior Premiere Pro app, but
it is inferior. But I still, like I'm holding on the Canon. I'm holding on the Premiere, baby.
No, it's fine. I mean, I do love the I do like the timeline, and I like the layers, and it's
Yeah.
clean, and it's aesthetically pleasing to look at for me.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
It's those
It's
little,
just a little slow.
it's those little, it's not even the speed anymore for me. It does have quirks. I mean, it's just like, it's still buggy. Like, that's the thing about Premiere for me. It's like slowness, that's not really an issue anymore with how
You
fast.
suck.
Yeah, you do suck a little bit, Premiere. I'm paying for a premium product. I want it to work well because I love all the ways that it functions in terms of like literally how it functions. But I
No more.
no more. But
Then this happens all the time.
yeah, exactly. That happens all the time, and it's like little things where it's like I click on something and then it bugs out. It's like, just work
Yeah.
perfectly.
Just work all the time.
Or work. I mean, it does work most of the time. It's just those little bugs that get annoying.
Yeah. But eventually they'll fix it. I mean, right?
No, they will never fix it, but they will still happily charge me all the money in the world. And I will still use it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Malachi is on DaVinci and he keeps showing it to me, and it looks pretty good.
DaVinci is nice.
Aesthetically, I am displeased when I look at DaVinci Resolve. I mean, it's just,
A little cluttery.
it's a little cluttery. Kind of same thing with Final Cut for me. It's a little cluttery to me, like the way that the timeline sits.
Oh, sure.
Like things are just it feels like things are just there, and then when you delete something, things just move. It terrifies me. I hate that. I know it's not, well, usually it's not broken, like how the edit syncs itself back up on Final Cut, but it just
Yeah.
freaks me out. I love Premiere because it's just, everything's just laid out like in those nice stacked layers, and it's, I purposely can move things around with intention, and
That makes sense.
that's why I like it, but it is the worst program of all three. It is.
Well, Final Cut hasn't seemed to have many updates recently at all either. That being said, I think there's a new Mac update. I think it's live. I haven't updated yet, but
Okay.
I think with that, there's a new Final Cut update, which is the first real update that we've had in like a year. But I don't know if it's out yet, but I would love to see it on the iPad. I think that'd be cool.
Oh yeah, because the new iPad's supposed to be able to do DaVinci,
Yeah, DaVinci's making an app.
but not Final Cut.
What's up with that?
Figure that one. Hey, we picked the worst two.
DaVinci is just taking over, honestly.
Yeah, as I mean, hey, they're giving people what they want, and
Listening
if they're
to feedback.
and listening to feedback, and if that makes them successful, that's great.
Yeah. So I thought it would be fun to talk about something that we have a little insight in, just being YouTubers in the gear space.
On the internet-tainers.
As we're talking about a lot of different cameras and releases and stuff, you may be seeing a lot of other creators posting videos all at the same time.
Right.
And it's this kind of influx of, on one day there's an announcement, and then you go to your home feed, and if you're in a certain niche, you'll just see
30 plus.
30 videos of that same topic
Right.
made by everybody. And that, I mean, it's been talked about before, but I just wanted to share my insight on that, and also in just our experience working with different companies. We're kind of starting from scratch now, essentially with the new review channel and with my personal channel and stuff. But hopefully, over the next 2 years or so, we can kind of get back on the train, I guess.
Back in the swing.
So yeah, when we were doing Kinotika, we got a couple of random invites, and I feel like that was kind of early days too. It wasn't as common back then.
Right.
Sony invite us to Catalina.
That was pretty cool.
That was really fun to go
Yeah.
to Catalina.
That was for the 6400.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you've been to a couple of the Sony ones. I mean, you're wearing the shirt.
Yeah, Sony Kondo. That was
Kondo.
cool. That was a cool one. And then the Camera Camp as well with the Azaric sisters, and Sony did that one.
And then, this new A7R5 just came out, and it looks like everybody went to New York.
Yep.
And by the way, all three of these examples are Sony related.
Yeah.
So
Sony's the best at what we're
Sony's
about
the
to
best
talk
at it. But basically, I think what Sony has clearly done really well is something that is actually illegal in traditional media, which is whining and dining journalists.
Right.
It's a big no-no because, like, according to FCC and like the regulations of journalism, there needs to be full unbiased, viewpoints on these things.
Right.
But these rules are sort of thrown out the window with online stuff.
It gets a little it's like it's a gray area, right?
I don't know if you remember, like back in the 90s and early 2000s, there was these little magazines that you would see at the store, and they're called Consumer Reports.
No.
And basically, this was how people got reviews of products back before the internet. So Consumer Reports was highly respected, and they like had just a ton of like morals with their reviews. They would not. Back in the old days, you could buy one of these.
Okay, yeah, no,
Well, this is
recognize
a magazine, but
Best
yeah,
cars
these are
of
best
2013 and like, whatever.
yeah, I guess this is essentially.
Yeah.
They would also review like just stuff like washers and dryers and
Sure. Just
whatever.
anything consumer.
Yeah, and so their model was as a company, they would purchase the item,
Right.
and then they would review it against all the competing items.
Right.
So say they were reviewing a tea kettle, they would buy
Very specific.
10 of the top tea kettles that range from Walmart to Sears to wherever. Back
Sears.
we're talking about the 90s here.
Yeah. Okay.
Talking about the 90s.
Yeah.
And when car companies obviously wanted a positive Consumer Report review,
Right.
and they would invite these reviewers to these shows and these similar type things where it's a party with food and wine and dine, and basically at a certain point there was this potential corruption issue of like, we're gonna wine and dine all these reviewers so that we get a positive review, because the more positive the review, obviously more people buy the product.
Well, it's kind of like what would movie reviews and stuff. It's a similar thing, because these people get to go see these movies early, and they tend to leave nicer reviews because they want to be invited to see the next movie early,
Yeah,
and then the next movie early,
exactly.
so that they can get their review out first, and then they can get more advertising, because then they get more clicks, and then so it is kind of a thing in this whole on the internet in general. I mean, this isn't just YouTubers and camera reviewers and things like that. It's across the board.
And in a way, for a YouTuber, we get clicks and views, and we make our living off of views. If the views are high, then we can charge more for sponsorships.
Right.
Which the sponsorship deals are really where the majority of our niche makes money. Is sponsorships and affiliate sales. Our niche, because there's not millions of views coming in, you don't typically make much money off of AdSense.
Almost nothing.
Almost nothing. Just like
It's a nice little bonus.
it's a little bonus. Yeah, exactly. So, so there is like this kind of slight bias that I feel is it's not something that people are maybe trying to do, but there is always this slight edge of bias when basically either the camera was given to you for free by the company, and you obviously want to continue receiving free cameras
in the future.
And then of course the ultimate one, which should be obvious to everybody, is the whole, we're going to fly you to Hawaii for a week.
Yeah.
And put you in a resort and feed you a ton of great food and hang out with a bunch of other YouTubers.
Creators.
And so it's like, at that point, wow, this company is amazing. I will never leave this company.
Yeah, they take
I'm
care of
loyal
you.
to this company. And so I think, and I'm not trying to point fingers to anybody, because I do think it is interesting and it's fun, and I think it can be handled maybe fairly well. But you kind of have to just take a lot of these reviews with a grain of salt, and also know that our identity is not in, what we do or what camera you shoot on. So, I think it can be unhealthy if you're a creator and you look at other creators who are maybe a couple of years ahead of you, and they're getting invited to stuff and you're not. And it's like, there's this kind of high school drama of like, well, I'm not invited to the cool kid party kind of mentality.
Right.
And it is a little weird for the creators who are there too, because I've spoken to many of them about this, and they almost feel bad about like, I don't want to post anything, 'cause I don't want to make people feel bad about it. But then Sony tells them like, hey, if you're coming, we want you to be posting and use this hashtag. And, so like, I think even Kondo, you could did they like tell you to post anything with a certain hashtag?
Yeah. There was hashtag Sony Kondo trip, and in fact, the more you posted, the more likely you were to win a camera.
Oh wow! So yes,
or a lens.
So basically, they're enticing the YouTubers to post on social media for free. Essentially, it's not really for
not
free
for free
because they paid for them to fly out.
Yeah, they're paying for the trip.
But I think a lot of YouTubers don't realize the value that they bring to Sony.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Sony has been crushing it proves that this model works really well.
Right.
They've listened to YouTubers. They've included features on some of these cameras that may not have been there if YouTubers didn't complain about it, like the flip screen, like the autofocus.
Right.
And even though like the A7S, for example, is a very popular camera for freelance video shooters, I think there's some little features in there that are actually kind of for YouTubers. Like, again, like the flip screen, that like if you're always behind camera as a cinematographer, you don't necessarily need that little flip screen to go all the way back. It's very helpful.
Yeah, it can be helpful.
But it's not like crucial for a cinematographer. That's why like the Blackmagic cinema cameras only kind of just pop out and they're just a nice big display on the back. They don't do a selfie screen.
Yeah.
And Red and Ari Alexa and all those, like they don't have anything like that either, obviously.
But you're right. There's a line as content creators that you have to walk between presenting all the information truthfully and getting the next camera for free. And I do think that there's a way to make, to do both. It's like to get the next camera, you have to be nice to them, but at the same time, to keep the respect of your audience, you have to be truthful with them. And your audience isn't dumb. I feel like they can, they see right through it. If you're eventually, it's like, they're going to be like, hey, I feel like this guy's not being 100% with me. Because if you don't say all the honest truth and then someone else does, they're like, well, why didn't that guy say that? So people start to catch on. One of the ways that I've found with writing scripts for different product reviews is you present one of the negatives about something. So let's say there's not a flip screen on a camera, and that's a negative, right? So you're going to say that. You're not going to just not address it. So it's like, so the whatever camera doesn't have a flip screen, but it does have, and then you end it with a positive, right? So it's a little bit of psychological for the company, because it's like you don't want to end your sentence on a negative. You want to end it on a positive, so the camera still feels positive.
Sure.
So your review still feels positive to the company. But as a consumer, you're still getting the information that's pertinent, which is the fact that, it doesn't have a flip screen. That's something I need to know as a consumer.
Well, I agree, and that's why I have you around, because my nature is to just completely bash on things that suck.
Yes.
I love this video review I did of the R6. What was it?
It's the 60 Mark II.
And Casey Neistat are totally wrong. 62. It is god awful. Have you seen how soft the image is?
So this
leads us
is
to
an
the
example
final question.
of,
Is the 6D Mark II worth the price? Hell no. The 6D Mark II is roughly $2,000.
This is an example
it's
of being honest.
stock, but it is
brutally
going for
honest.
about $1,800.
This one will not
on
get you
B&H.
invited to the
Let's
trips.
compare that to some other cameras, shall we? The GH5.
So and this video has 444,000.
It did very well.
So here's the flip side of that argument. That is the right way to be, invited to events.
It's like a neutral way of making content.
But people are hungry and desperate for opinions.
Yeah.
Especially from someone that has an opinion that is warranted with my experience using the 80D, which was cheaper and had a sharper image.
Right.
The 1DC. And I'm seeing the kind of BS that everybody was praising this camera at this time. It was a $2,000 camera at the time, and it was garbage. It looked so soft and it was terrible. And they're like, "Oh, it's amazing," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? It looks awful." Here's what I've learned. I've matured since here, a lot. I think I was being honest about the camera, but there's people attached to the all these cameras, like in terms of engineers and people who design these cameras, and their intention is never to like make a bad product,
Right.
And when we went to the Sony A7 or the A6400 thing, that's really where I learned that, because I actually met some of these engineers,
Right.
and I was sort of being my Dave self and complaining about some Sony stuff, and I could see like they were kind of like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you know, I was making them feel bad.
Right.
And I was like, oh, every product that exists has humans attached to it.
Right.
So like I shouldn't say things so harshly.
It's like you can still say exactly what you're saying in this video, but then just say it with a hint of grace.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which, especially as a Christian and as somebody who wants to reflect positivity,
Yeah.
I shouldn't be super harsh. That being said, right when this was happening was not long after I worked with a guy named Dave Ramsey, who is known for being very harsh on the radio. And I kind of heard him say when I worked there, like, people are just hungry for an opinion. And like Bill O'Reilly, you know, Tucker Carlson, and then think about any other person that's just kind of like has an opinion, they're intense about it. They're very popular and people listen to them because most people don't kind of have that type of personality. It's sort of something that as humans we're sort of attracted to in a way. Even if you disagree with that person, the fact that they're standing up for something makes you want to either fight back with your opinion or whatever. It's just kind of a human trait that we all have of like, if somebody's really serious about a point, and whether you agree or disagree, you just like, you want to like involve yourself in that communication or whatever. And so the comments in this are nuts. And this video performed really well because I was just like saying stuff that a lot of people agreed with, you know, totally agree. Just bought this camera and I can say the full frame makes a huge difference, but you know, blah, blah, blah.
Like, that guy doesn't agree with me. Move on.
I started shooting with a 60 amazing photos. So I just shot stills and I'm super satisfied. Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with you. I bought this camera and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyways, now that camera is really old and, you know, I think it's a lot cheaper now.
Yeah.
So, well,
But
good
also-
Lord, no, it's not. It's still $1,300.
Canon never goes on sale, ever.
This camera was $1,800 when I was crapping on it, and it's $13 now. It's been 4 years, 5 years.
What's crazy to me is that they are...
Don't buy the 60 Mark II.
Yeah, why would you buy that?
$2,500.
Why would you buy that in today's world?
It's still selling.
By the way, in this conversation, don't get the idea that we're poo-pooing on YouTubers of any certain people. You know, it's like we're not crapping on our fellow YouTubers and saying anything like that. I mean, like, obviously when a camera is not good, they will say it because, for instance, back when I worked with...
Not the ZV-1F or whatever. There was a lot of creators that were like saying that it was good and it's actually garbage. Like, we need to be honest with our viewers, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because I know when I was working with Armando, we were big Canon people back in the day. And then when the R5 came out initially, we crapped on that camera. You know, we were like, what is the deal? Like, this is unacceptable and all that stuff. So speaking at least from the experiences I've had with people, I do feel like there is a level of honesty, even though we were big Canon fans. We were shooting on the C500, which is a biggie Canon camera.
Biggie Canon camera. I've heard Gerald talk about it before. He's like, he gets accused of being a shrill for Sony or whatever, because he uses Sony, he talks highly of them, and he said that he only talks about things he likes.
Right.
So the perception is when you watch his content that he's just like positive about everything.
Right.
But he's like, if he finds a camera uninteresting or something about it that's terrible, he's just like, I'm not going to make a video because I'm not into it.
Right.
You know? So therefore
he's only talking about cameras that he enjoys.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Which I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And Caleb Pike, I know, I've talked to him before, DSLR video shooter, and he does purchase his cameras for the most part. I don't know if that's still his like
way of
going about it. Yeah, I don't know if he still gets free stuff.
Right.
But when I talked to him years ago, he said he actually turns down the free cameras so that he can remain fully unbiased.
Yeah,
which
that's honorable.
It is honorable. I think YouTube has changed a lot, and you kind of, I mean, his numbers speak for themselves though. He's growing and continuing to have a stable career. A lot of people who are just starting out, they're just chasing those numbers, and getting the new stuff gives them that leg up, I guess you could say. But I think you're right. I think the viewers are not dumb. They can see through anything that would seem fake for the most part.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, this is a call to action to my fellow creators to potentially consider thinking about these things as you get invited to stuff.
Sure.
As I get invited to things, as we go and do things and interact with camera companies, I still want to have my foundation in serving the audience first. We're not here to make videos for Sony. We're here to make videos for the audience.
Right.
So at the end of the day, if there's a compromise there, I would rather not work with Sony and just do it on my own, because I think long-term career-wise, that's how you build a brand, and that's how you build a actual career on YouTube. Whereas if you're relying on these companies, you know, all it takes is just, you know, not being invited to whatever, and then it's over or whatever.
Yeah, and also remaining neutral between different brands is just a good idea in general if you're going to review cameras, because then you don't feel like you only have to talk about whoever, Fujifilm, for instance. Like, let's say, you know,
I love all cameras.
Yeah, it's like that's what I was telling when I was on the condo trip, you know, and they were like, oh, you know, Sony cameras. I was like, I own a Canon, and that kind of blew their mind. But
what? And you're here?
Yeah, and they're like, how did we paid for this? And I was like, you did. No, I was telling them, it's like I actually am looking to eventually get a Sony camera as well. Like, and I want a Fujifilm, and I own a Canon, and it's like, I don't think like all these cameras are cool in their own right, and they all have good and unique features, and they serve different people differently, and it depends on what you need. And so I don't feel like, you know, like if you're just making content for one camera company, it's like, well, that doesn't really make any sense. It's like if you're reviewing cameras or whatever, it's like, just use them all.
Yeah, I mean, but if you are a loyalist and you love a certain brand, then that's fine too. Whatever.
I guess that's a fair point.
For example, because I was a guitar player first before I got into camera stuff, I think about guitars in that way. And there's a lot of guitar nerds who have like every brand you can imagine.
Sure.
They have Fender guitars, acoustic electric guitars, bass guitars, Gibson Les Pauls.
Yeah.
But then there's also like people who just love a certain brand. Like Jared James Nichols, he's one of my favorite guitarists. He is 100% a Les Paul guy, which is a specific model from a specific maker. Right. And I'm sure he owns other guitars, but at least on his Instagram, he just has like 6 Les Pauls.
Well, and also when I'm saying use all of them, it doesn't mean don't have a preference. Like if you prefer it and that's your favorite and that's what you want to use, then use it. You know, like that is fine. But I do think like as like a reviewer, I think it's important to use all these other cameras and get different perspectives, because maybe even in that you can find features or things that you like that maybe you could then talk to a Sony rep and be like, hey, these things are cool. I'd love to see something similar, or maybe you guys could take inspiration from. Let's
be honest, it's the other way around. You talk to other companies about things Sony.
Yeah, you're right. Sony is, I mean, like, as someone who uses a Canon camera, Sony's crushing it right now. I mean, like, their stuff is great. Really curious to see what the R6 Mark II does, but man, they're enticing. They're doing a good job.
The big hang up for years was the color science, and I feel like they finally have landed on their own unique style, and it looks great.
I actually enjoy it a lot. I think Canon has that warmer feel, and it still works really good for weddings. But I don't like shooting weddings, so.
And also, I feel like just generally the Canon stuff is just bigger. It's a little bit larger. The lenses are a little heavier.
I actually like that in terms of the camera body itself. Like the grip on the R5 is like my favorite. It's like
More
so
comfortable.
great, more comfortable than the Sonys. That would be one of my biggest hangups with the Sonys now is just the ergonomics and then the menus. But like in terms of pure performance, and Sony is
Their lenses are great.
and the lenses. I mean, if you want to compare lenses, especially because they have a huge lineup compared to Canon right now, because Canon switched to RF.
They're several years behind.
They're very behind.
But it'll just be a matter of time too. I mean, in 5 years, Canon should have their lens lineup pretty covered,
Right.
for the most part. So, and there will continue to be new cameras like the R6 Mark II, which we can talk about next week.
and the XT5, do not forget.
The XT5
See,
next week.
I have a preference, and it's Fujifilm.
Yep. And I like my silly Olympus camera. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in today for another episode of the
Hey,
Golden Hour
thanks
Podcast.
for tuning in.
Would you please consider going to ghp.fm and shooting us a question or feedback? Feel free to leave a review. You can leave a review on our website or the Apple Podcast
You can
player.
just say hi. That could be your review. Hey,
Yeah,
what's
so-
up? It'd be nice.
Head over to ghp.fm. Got that nice website all set up and stuff. It's great.
Or if you'd rather, just listen, because that's good too.
Yeah. And keep an eye out on both the Dave Mays channel and the Dave Mays Reviews channel. We got some new stuff coming out. Very excited
Some
about.
content brewing over in that corner for sure.
Indeed. So thanks again for joining us on the Golden Hour Podcast. I'm your co-host, Dave Mays.
And I'm the other co-host, Connor McCaskill.
And we'll see you next time.
What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody?